Welcome to the Daily, where we just take a few minutes each day to focus on God's Word so that we can find and follow Him in every area of our life. Today's devotional comes from Luke chapter 13, so let's go. If you are a fan of racing, then you understand the concept of first and last, right? So if you go to a high school track meet and we're watching the sprints, it's pretty easy to identify which runner crosses the finish line first and unfortunately which runner crosses the finish line last. In life, sometimes we feel like we can identify first and last as well. We look at a lot of different factors as we go through life. We look at influence. It's easy to identify who has more influence and who has less influence. We sometimes look at socioeconomic status, and it's easy for us to identify who has more money and who has less money. There are moments in life when we look on the outside and we identify that there are greater and that there are lesser. And Jesus is referring to this in Luke chapter 13 as he's talking about heaven. And in the NIV, he says, in that day, there will be some who are last now, but will be first then. And there are some who are first now, who will be last then. In the New Living Translation, it says, there are some who are of least importance now, but will be greatest then. And there are some who are greatest now, who will be least important then. What God's really referring to is the same thing he tells the prophet Samuel when Samuel goes to Jesse's house to anoint David as king in the Old Testament. And God tells the prophet Samuel that man looks on the outward, but God sees the inward. As it relates to the kingdom of heaven, as it relates to our living for Jesus, what God sees so often is our hearts, our sincerity, our intentions, our love, our passion to know Him, our desire to know God more. So sometimes we look at the outward and we go, well, that person is greatest or that person is first. But God doesn't look at the outward. God looks at our hearts. As we continue to put one foot in front of the other, to experience more of His presence and to know God more, remember this, that as we go through life, God doesn't measure first and last based on influence or income or looks or possessions or anything like that. God measures based on your heart. God sees your heart, your desire, your sincerity to know Him more. I encourage you today to take a few minutes just to reconnect with the Lord and say, God, here I am. Help me to know You more. Help me to experience more of Your presence every day of my life. Because it's that moment. That's what God sees. God sees your heart. God bless you and have a great day.